Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to the Indian Military History Podcast. I am Vikram Dalal. This is episode number 5. And today we have with us a very, very special guest, a very senior officer from the Indian Army, Lieutenant General KJ Singh. Honors AVSM, PVSM, and BAR. Did I say that in the right format, sir?
No, it should be said PVSM, AVSM, and bar. So, but
Okay.
it is such a confusing thing. I have been to many fora where people say AVSM bar. So they sort of they can't make much out of it. What is this about? And
Okay.
like even our ranks,
Yeah.
like people sometimes call you lieutenant, sometimes they call you
Oh,
lieutenant
that.
general. So
Oh,
it's
that's
it's
really
okay.
far
It's
off.
okay.
That's yeah. That is a pretty big
and
mistake if someone's
and
calling you
and
lieutenant.
I tell people that you call me lieutenant, but give me my youth back. Then I'm happy.
That yeah, I think that would be a fair trade. So
Yeah.
you served in the army. So you served in the army for almost 40 years. That's just an amazing. I was going through your journey in the army. You commanded the 63rd Cavalry, 83rd Armored Regiment, 33 Corps. I have my notes, so I'm sort of looking at that at the same time. And then you also commanded the Western Command and then you retired in 2016. So from nine.
See, Vikram,
Yes, sir.
Vikram, I have to roll my story back. The story that I want to share
Yes, sir.
with your audience is that I used to live in a small town in Rajasthan. I used to go to a Hindi medium school,
Wow.
and my father was in administrative services there, state services, and he felt that I need to get out from there and take some kind of affordable public school education.
Yeah.
So Sainik School came my way. So when I was about, you know, uh, how did our generation shape up? If you see, look
Yeah.
at the whole thing, that 62 war, not much recollection, uh, but 65 had just happened when I wrote my exam for entering Sainik School.
Okay.
And 66, I joined a Sainik School in Chittor, which was quite some distance from where I lived. And at the age of 10 years, I was in a Sainik School, which was also affordable public school. Your dad also went to one.
Yes.
And so the Sainik schools were very Bharat, they had a rural kind of uh, student base.
Yeah.
Children who studied there came from villages and all. And I myself came from a small town kind of thing.
Yep.
And basically, we are villagers. So then, uh, 65 war had taken place. And we used to be, in our school, we used to fast on one day. India was in such a dire straits. People
Yeah.
don't realize what has happened since then. And 71 war took place. I wrote my NDA exam, more with the tribal kind of thing that everybody in my class is doing it, and why should I do? And how am I less than them? So I went, and I remember your dad and me, we were in the same services selection board in Roorkee. So I have very fond memories of your dad. So now
Nice.
we went there, and I got through. And my parents told me, my mother especially, she said, see, 62 happened, 65 happened, 71 happened. Every 5, 6 years, there's a war. Why do you want to take this thing? In Punjabi, they say, why do you want to take this panga?
Yeah.
And but one took that. And then since then, so when you say 40, I have to correct you that it's really 50
Yes.
because I did Sainik school, then
Yes.
NDA, then IMA. It was one you had got on a roller coaster and you could get off it. It was like that. And
Yes.
when I came to army, uh, I chose to join Armored Corps. I had no connect with army.
Mhm.
Nobody in my family had ever served in army. So there was huge, big apprehension whether I'll be able to adjust there and what will I make of that career. But Vikram, things happen. It's
Yeah.
just that you're lucky, you find good environment, and you carry on.
Was there a specific reason why you chose armored core over armored over infantry or any other services?
Basically, see, people will tell you those who have a army background, they would know. But I didn't know anything about army. I
Hmm.
just thought that cavalry or armored corps is very, cool, very stylish.
It does sound
You
very
you
cool.
thought like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I thought, you won't have to see. When I joined army, I thought that's the end of studies. You won't have to study. But my dad has been in administrative services.
Yeah.
Amount of courses I've done,
Yeah.
like in army, the number of I've done two MPhils, I've done
Yeah.
an MSc in defense studies. So it's we when we choose our, your generation is luckier. You are well informed. You have choices. We didn't have many choices, and that's how it was.
Yeah, I think speaking of Scenic schools, I think the Scenic school system plays a very important role for people to sort of come out of the rural background that they have and sort of uh, you know get out there and it gives them an opportunity to have a better life. And I can see that with my dad and many other examples as well, where they have been able to sort of really make a lot out of those opportunities that Scenic school gave them. So it's a very valuable institution, I would say. um the so sir, when you joined the armored corps tanks, so obviously tanks sound very cool. What was the first tank type that you were trained on? And you started your service in 1977, right? So I'm assuming a lot of the tanks would be Russian made.
We had that time we had T-55s and Vijayans. These were the two
Mhm.
tanks, and PT-76 were in very small numbers. These were three tanks in our armored corps that time. I joined a T-55 regiment, or
Okay.
I like to correct myself a bit. One or two regiments still had T-54, which had come from Russia. So what India had done was that T-55 had a 100 millimeter gun, which was not a very reliable gun. So what India did is India took the Vijayant gun, 105 millimeter,
Yeah.
and it mated it onto the T-55 platform, which was called
Okay.
upgunning. From
Or
100
jugaad,
millimeter,
basically.
it became, yeah, 105 millimeter.
Yeah.
No, but it was well considered jugaad with proper technical validation and all. It was
Hmm.
not as if anybody who wanted, it was done scientifically,
Yeah.
properly, checked out and all. Israelis or some other country chose to call it India's bastard tank. A tank which
Oh,
is,
that's a
that's how
horrible
it was.
name to call
Yeah.
it.
But T-55 was a very reliable tank.
Hmm.
My tank was 1685. I still remember the number. In my troop, there were three tanks, 1742, 1685, and 1502.
So
So
every so
I had
every
three
tank
tanks.
has, okay, so
And then,
a a troop of tank has three tanks in it. That's what you said.
yes, yes. And each one has a number. And
Hmm.
it has got, number is also starts with ZX or
Okay.
YX. Now the year is being put. Our times it was ZX and all.
Hmm.
Now the first two are letters signifying which year this tank was commissioned.
I see.
So that's how it is kept track of. And would you believe it, Vikram? When I was retiring, my last day when I was pulled out from my regiment was on the same tank, 1685. The tank was still in service,
Yeah.
and it was located by my staff. It was in a neighboring place, which is only 20 kilometers away. So it
Hmm.
was brought up to my regiment, and I was pulled out in that tank.
That is
See,
so cool.
those tanks, quality control was very high order. I'm
Right.
sorry to say, Russian tanks which came in later, like my regiment, uh, I had this T-55.
Yep.
Then I went to buy Independence Corn in my regiment. They had PT-76.
Yep.
which got phased out. T-55 got phased out. Now PT-76 was an amphibious and light tank. So it is now being after Ladakh thing. India is after about 25 odd years of not having any light tank, or even more. We are now trying to make a light tank. We are making Zoravar, which is going to be a light tank, indigenous. That work is going on. So it's assumed it will be made in 2 3 years time.
Mhm.
So let me just complete one thing. Got commissioned in T-55 and Vigilance were there. Then saw induction of T-72s. I commanded my regiment with T-72s.
Okay.
By which time T-90s were getting in. So I commanded first T-90 brigade. So
Wow.
when I left army, surprisingly all three were still in service. T-55, because in India, a tank has a life of 40, 45, 50 years.
Yeah.
It serves with frontline regiment, then it is given to headquarters, then it is given to combat support elements like engineers,
Right.
and carries on because it's not easy to replace.
What would you say is the biggest difference between the T-55s and T-72 versus the T-90?
See, T-55 was a tank which is very simple, basic.
Hmm.
It had a four-man crew. It was around 40 tons. Then T-72, Russians make a tank in an evolutionary manner. The same thing they take, they add few things and they upgrade, but the configuration remains, it grows on that one configuration type
Okay.
of thing. So they upgrade the engine also, they improve the transmission, but it's an evolutionary process. It's not
Okay.
a revolutionary change suddenly. So T-72 incorporated an auto loader. So
Yep.
crew got reduced from 4 to 3. It, you had an auto loader. See, auto loader gives you an advantage that loader is the only member of the crew who has to stand. Rest are sitting in seats. To load, you have to stand.
Right.
So for a person to stand, the height of the tank has to cater for a person to stand. Though
Oh. How?
Russians, though Russians have laid down that their crews will be of a medium height, but India didn't have that luxury. We gave these tanks to regiments which had Rajputs, Jats, Ahirs,
Yeah.
you know, who
Yeah.
are tall. You know,
Right.
we took we there are limitations of poor country.
Right.
So then T-72 has an auto load. So
Yeah.
you don't have to have fourth man is gone. Its engine was of a higher order, and it had also laser rangefinder. It still has laser rangefinder. Its night vision device had improved, and then came T-90. T-90 was a further improvement. Uh, the rangefinder became better, and today in a tank, it's not the steel, it's the optronics. About
Yeah.
40% of tanks value is optronics. What kind of rangefinder you have, what kind of night vision device you put, what kind of navigation system you have. So that makes the value package of a tank.
Right. So, and you also mentioned the Zorawar light tank that is coming up in the next few years, and the reason for that is
Yeah.
so that we can improve our capability along the border regions along China. Is there a specific
Yeah.
reason why we need a light tank in that at
See,
that height?
see,
Is it?
light tank has got few criteria. See, what is light? Like you can ask what is light. Traditionally, light tank is 28 tons or so and below.
Okay.
And the tank should be able to float. It should be amphibious. But China fielded a tank of theirs, ZX, this tank, which is of 34 tons. And they are
Hmm.
calling it light. The Chinese can do anything.
Right.
They're Chinese. So when we saw Chinese tanks, we realized that we also need a light tank. Light tank is agile, air transportable. You can,
Hmm.
you have,
Oh, I
ideally it is
see.
an amphibious,
Right.
and it doesn't damage those roads which are difficult to build in. So it'll have rubber shoes and all, so that you don't damage the roads. You can, it's agile, and the protection is less
Yes.
because it's light. So you have some other means, and
In terms of the,
it's
sorry, go ahead.
gun also. Normally, gun is about 105 millimeter, and you supplement it with a missile. That's how you try to have the firepower on that.
So in terms of the firepower, is it equivalent to that of the heavier tanks, or is a 105 mm a smaller gun? I just don't have any idea about this, sir.
It is okay. It's okay for that role
Okay.
that you are giving it, because you're not only fighting with that tank. Tank
Right.
is part of a system. So you have say Zoravar, you will have medium tanks with them, and you will have anti-tank weapons with them. So
Right.
it's a part of a system that you're employing there.
And then India also created a very heavy tank called Arjun, and that was not very
Yes.
successful. Apparently, what was the reasons for that? Any thoughts? Any
See, what
opinions?
happened is Arjun is a tank which is heavy, around 70 tons or so,
Whoa.
and it is a tank which is indigenously developed.
Right.
Though every indigenization is not complete indigenization. We
Yeah.
still get engine from Germany, MTU, transmission rank from again abroad, and so many things come from outside. So it's not as if it's 100% indigenized, but it is largely made in India. So it is called the indigenous tank. So when we started making it, the problem is the interfacing between the user and the DRDO was not good. So armed forces kept changing their requirements,
Hmm.
kept asking for more, more, more,
Yeah.
and it kept on adding to the weight. So today the status is we have two regiments and two more are joining them. It is used mostly in the desert area where you don't have too many bridges, and it can be once put in that sector, it is used there.
Okay. Well,
But it's fairly good tech.
okay. Seeing how heavy the tank was, they should have called it instead of calling it Arjun, they should have called it Beam.
You have a good
just
sense of humor.
just
Yeah,
putting
it
it
could
out.
have been done that. You could have done that. You could have done that.
Right.
Yeah. But incidentally, T90 is called Bhishma
Ah, I see. Okay. Okay, that's cool. Just
because
one
of
last.
its potency.
Right.
Because of its potency.
Uh-huh. Bhishma. Right.
Mm.
One last question on this conversation on tanks. In the war in Ukraine, now the backbone of the Russian armor is the T-72s, and now they have a lot of T-90s also being inducted into the war. And on the Ukrainian side, now they're coming up with Leopard 2s and the US Abrams. If we were to do a comparative analysis of the Leopard 2 Abrams versus the T-90s, are they at an equal footing, or would you say the Western technologies are better, or the Russian reliability sort of takes precedent over that? How would you compare them?
See, one factor which we just cannot ignore is how those tanks are used. Like if I am asked to comment on this fiasco which Russians have, imposed on themselves, putting tanks in one single file and putting them in a miles long, convoy
Yeah.
and making them sitting ducks over there. We never used tanks like this. When I joined my regiment, I was told the first principle of employment of tanks is dispersion, dispersion, dispersion. You have to be dispersed. So if you were in a horizontal sort of row kind of a formation, so minimum distance had to be 800 to 1000 meters. Okay. And the thing we were taught is no two tanks accidentally also should come in the line of same projectile. You
Mm.
should make it difficult for a person to engage you. And if you were going in a column formation, then uh, you again would be staggered, so that you're not in one line. One tank is here, one tank is on the side,
Right.
third is there. So it is a staggered kind of a formation. So the one who's engaging you has greater challenges. Now, if I was to recollect one story of, since it's a history channel, 1965 war,
Yep.
uh, Pakistan was given M48 tanks,
Pattern tanks. Yep.
pattern tanks. And patterns that time were the most modern.
Yep.
Americans gave them. And India had Centurions and AMXs, which were, obsolescent kind of tanks. It was at the end of their life type of thing, British tanks. So now Centurion was a very basic tank. It was outgunned by Patterns. Patterns had very that time very modern coincidence rangefinders, which is uh, two mirrors are placed at the ends of the turret. You are a scientist, so it is lambda, and you keep varying their focal lengths. So function of focal length into lambda at the projected target gives you range, you
Right.
know, triangulation kind of thing is achieved. Now, Pakis could never master that because tanks had just been inducted.
Right.
Whereas our crews brought up what the word that you used, wonderful word, jugaad. So
Yeah.
what our crews did is they decided that you level the gun and you will elevate it half, and then you will depress it one full circle. So what you're doing is from here, you're going half up, full down, so half here and half here. So you're making a bracket. And this bracket of 3 rounds was such that no target, if you fired it quickly, no target could be safe in that bracket. It'll be
Wow.
destroyed for sure. And this 3 round technique one works with 65 more. So it'll be how you use your tanks. But
Hmm.
Vikram, I'll agree with you on this fact that T-72s and T-90s have thrown up this challenge that their turret has got this phenomena that if you hit the turret and hull join, then the turret can fly off.
Hmm.
It's got that weakness.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
And the
Yeah.
second thing is ammunition which is inside. Most Western equipment now puts ammunition outside or in what is called as blow off panels, which have like which have sort of pre-planned, engineered kind of uh, weakness. So when you have an attack, those panels will first blow off, and that ammunition effect will go out. It will not
Oh.
get into the turret.
Okay.
So in Russian tanks, you can be, if you are hit, you can be cooked inside, literally. But
Wow.
the Western tanks give you better protection because they have these blow-off panels. So these are challenges. But when you're fighting, there are now there is a new animal in the pack, which is drones, top
Yeah.
attacks. See,
Yeah.
when you design the tanks to keep down the weight, you have to design as per there is this science which is called directional probability variable theory. That
Okay.
you see, if you attack, in which arc you will get maximum attack. So
Right.
that you put 500 millimeter of protection. Okay, special steel. Okay,
Right.
and on the side and bottom behind you put lesser, much lesser. On top you put just about 40-50 millimeter. So now this is a game. This is cat and mouse game. So people who have to attack tanks said, okay, I will come from top. I'll attack you from top.
Right.
So drones or incorporate the top.
I think in the Ukraine war, after they saw that when the drones are attacking from the top, and then there's a huge vulnerability of those tanks, they created an extension. They had those things on top of the tanks to
Yeah.
provide a little bit better protection. That's kind of like the Russian Jugaad, but obviously the tanks that they had inducted into the war, they obviously did not take into account the threat from drones, because those tanks were from back in the days. I would imagine that the new tanks that would be coming in would take that into account, and the top part will also be much better protected.
See, this idea of tanks when they were fighting in built-up area, not here, in Lebanon and Syria and those areas,
Hmm.
that time Israelis encountered that people would get into windows of houses and lob grenades and all, and
Hmm.
with a rocket launcher destroy a tank. So tanks started incorporating what is called a cage, which is
Yeah.
called tusk, tank urban survival kit, tusk, or
Hmm.
bus built up area survival kit.
Oh,
Cage, or you put chains, flames, and you use them to sort of create that 1 minute, 1 minute. Sorry.
that's okay.
Uh, that, you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
So
Perfectly fine.
you create that kind of a protection for yourself. And now we have moved into what is called an active protection system. So you have devices which there are some which are first generation, which generate certain thermal signatures like smoke and all to defeat a incoming projectile. And uh, there are better, like Israelis have made something called as Trophy, Arena, and these systems have come in. First generation was Shatora. So with that, what happens is you fire a small projectile
Right.
and you destroy that or you deflect it.
Oh, as soon as
So
if there's a an attack coming on a tank, it will sort of sense that something is coming towards the tank, and it will just
yeah,
fire it, and then
yeah,
just before it attack. Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
And it's very expensive. It's very expensive. So
Has to be.
it's a question of how many you are putting, where you're putting, and also tanks have to fight as part of a system. You
Right.
know, you have to have air defense with us. So if you incorporate and fight it properly, I think you can still. Uh, and I would feel that well-trained crews will get better returns out of the same tanks. India cannot throw away so many T-72s or
Yep.
T-90s. In any case, we should look at our adversaries. Pakistan has also got so many tanks.
Yep.
China has also got tanks. They're not throwing it away. They'll obviously use it. So with better modifications, better employment of air defense, I think we can find answers. And dispersion, of course.
Right. The speaking of the training of crews of the Pakistan Army, the incident that you mentioned on the 1965 war, that's from the Battle of Kem Karan and Asal Uttar, right, where the Patton tanks were
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
demolished. I was
yeah.
I just did my reading on the 1965 war, and I was just amazed to see that in that war, Pakistan lost 97 tanks and India lost 5. It was such a one-sided battle. It and all of that, I think most of it goes to the excellent training and the of the Indian tank crews. Would you say so?
And also anti-tank people. Because
Yes.
after all, Abdul Hamid was
Abdullah.
not in a tank. He was
Right.
fighting off a recoilless, gun
That's RCL.
detachment. So
Right.
it is. And other thing is, uh, in that situation, they were distinctly very foolish or unlucky. They got caught out. In the sense, sometimes disaster happened. So
Right.
that disaster happened to them.
I think.
I have a healthy respect for Pakistan Army. It's not so bad. You
Right.
know, whatever enemy you have, you feel good if you fight some well-trained enemy and
Right.
not.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's the and so that's one of the weird comments that I get on my YouTube channel is like, if I say anything positive about the Pakistan army, then folks, the nationalists and everything, they start coming and saying, well, how dare you say good things about the Pakistan army? I'm like, yeah, if the Pakistan army is good and we are beating them, that makes us look better. There's and the fact, you have to tell the facts. I mean, we were the same army back in the days during the British time, and we've had the same level of training, so they are a very worthy opponent or
yeah, yeah,
adversary, you would say that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. We work with them in United Nations and see them there, and
Hmm.
we've not fought a war. I've not fought a war with them per
Yeah.
se, but we've seen them. So to dismiss them will be very tedious. You
Right.
know, I am not too sure about. I feel actually very concerned when I see on Twitter and all. There are people who say, "Why aren't we going to, attack POK?" Now,
Yes.
see, uh, you know, uh, if POK has to be recaptured, you tell me, will it be decided on Twitter? The guys who will do it will want to achieve a surprise. They'll not let you and me get whiff of it. They'll do it
Right.
one day, probably if they can do it. That surprise is required. And the second thing is, uh, we should not put pressure unnecessary. We don't have to go and fight. Those people who have to fight are day in, day out working out their options.
Right.
So I was a corps commander, army commander. I would hone those options. I would do risk mitigation. You can't just launch forces like this. You have to see what did Musharraf do. He launched people in Kargil, and then I call it the Musharraf folly.
Right.
You're
Eh,
tactically you're okay, but strategically it was a bloody mistake.
right. That's what they mentioned about the Kargil war, was that tactically it was a brilliant plan, because capturing those posts and you know uh, putting the National Highway 1 at risk, that was a pretty good tactic. But there was no strategic outcome that could come out of it. So yeah, that's what they mentioned. The tactically good, strategically pretty bad. I wanted to sort of come back to that point where you mentioned that you worked with the Pakistan Army in the United Nations. Is that awkward, or how is the relationship when you work with them? Is it uh,
No, over there you do not sort of this thing because there is a common enemy. There is
right?
a this thing. So like when Chinese camp was attacked in Sudan and Indian army went to their rescue.
Hmm.
Okay. And we have a fairly good idea that China man is not 10 foot tall.
Right.
They quite chickened out over there. But
Hmm.
our army went and saved them, UN peacekeepers.
Right.
So it's not as if in that environment you tend to, there is this sense of competition. There is like I'll tell you, insecurities will always remain.
Yeah.
Like I in Angola got friendly with a Pakistani civilian official who was a UN employee. And on 14th of August, we were called for a party. And on
Hmm.
14th of August, we went for that party. And in
Right.
Angola, those parties start late. All parties start around 10:30, 11,
Right.
and carry on till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So around 12 o'clock, two cakes were brought on, that food tray kind of thing. They
Yep.
came. One was Indian flag and one was Pakistani flag. And
Yeah.
they said Independence Day and let's cut cake. And they said you're such good friends. So KJ, you cut Pakistani and Tazi, his name was Mumtaz, you cut
Yeah.
Indian. I never thought for 1 minute. I stepped up to do that. He caught my hand and he told me in Punjabi that let's cut our own only because there might
Hmm.
be so insecurity in their mind is real. They are smaller. So that is
Hmm.
there. We have been, uh, in a way, we are now becoming a little aggressive and, we are waking up to this. When we were in peacekeeping and all, we were steeped in that era of non-alignment and those kind of issues.
Right.
So, uh, world has changed.
Mhm. Uh, Speaking of that point where your team went and rescued the Chinese regiment over there in the UN peacekeeping. They say, people talk about the Chinese military might and all of that, but it seems like they haven't had any conflicts, or they haven't had any war that they fought recently. Uh, how would you rate the Chinese military, since it has not been tested out? So if an army or a military has not been tested out, is there a possibility that it may be a paper tiger, or how would you actually answer this question,
See,
or get into analysis of this?
see, 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 we have a lot of scuffles with Chinese PLA army
Right.
on the LAC. They used to happen earlier also. Like when I
Mm.
was a corps commander looking after Sikkim, we used to have them regularly. So in all those face-offs, our boys did better than Chinese. Chinese
Mm.
also in China has a history where in Hong Kong and Shanghai and other places, when Britishers ruled China, they had recruited Sikh policemen, and the
Mm.
criteria for recruitment was that a person should be 6 foot and above,
Ah, I
and
see.
he should be able to carry two, no, normal people in his armpits, you know,
Yeah.
press them in armpit
Right.
and
Like
walk
like
with them.
this. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, then walk with them. So this was the kind of policeman with Britishers used. So those things are still in some of their posters, history books. So they are quite conscious of that. Now
Mm.
China has its own challenges, like one child family there, Chinese army's got conscription. So, now, but they are better supported in logistics.
Right.
They are technically a little more advanced,
Mm.
but you can't say that they are so much ahead of us technologically, but they're a little more advanced. So, and
Mm.
their soldiers are also resilient. So for us, I don't subscribe to this philosophy that the other man is so weak. Then why the hell am I, claiming to
Right.
be hell of a soldier? Yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
am I ever comparing myself with some army which has got no consequence?
right.
Chinese army has got its own strengths, and we have to be aware of that. But we should never be intimidated by that, because we've seen it in number of situations that they're not 10 feet tall. They are normal soldiers. They can be tackled.
Right. Yeah. In terms of technology,
And
in
uh,
terms of,
and
right.
Vikram, sorry to cut you
No
there.
worries.
Their capability to take casualties is much lesser than us.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, because we have been sort of put on our toes, kept on our toes by all of the issues that we've had from the Pakistan side. So the resilience in our soldiers probably would be much higher as compared to the Chinese, because they haven't faced all those problems. And it's like when you sort of, that becomes a part and parcel of your life, you sort of become much stronger, mentally, emotionally. So soldier to soldier, because of that history, I think our soldiers' resilience would be much stronger.
Much, much, much strong.
Right. Okay. And just to point out that, when you mentioned about the that a lot of folks on Twitter are like, oh, we can go into Skardu and all of that. That sort of brings me into one of the topics I wanted to discuss, was the doctrines, the military doctrines that we have versus the Pakistan side, right? We have the doctrine called cold start, and Pakistan has their own doctrine that as soon as Indian troops enter into their territory, they'll use tactical nukes. If you could talk a little bit about that and sort of explain to the viewers what a doctrine is and
See,
what our doctrine is. And
See, uh, basically, we at one time thought of something called as cold start doctrine, which was that you will. This was after we realized that we need to put it across to them before they react.
Yeah.
And but basic objection to that came up even from the government that wars do not start like this. There
Mm.
is certain amount of warming up before the wars start. So practicality of cold start, I have always had doubt on.
Mm.
So with huge big formations. So then we came out with a concept of integrated battle groups, which is don't have huge big formations. Previously, our concept was that you go into Pakistan with two or three armored depth thrusts and put your weight in those strike corps and go deep and create, you know, such a psychological dislocation in Pakistan. All those concepts have now got into a lot of questioning. Can you go so far deep? Is it possible?
Mm.
And Pakistan then, as a counter, came up with the concept of use of tactical nukes.
Right.
Now, is it possible to use tactical nukes, or is it just an empty threat? Because in Kargil now it was said that after Balakot also they are saying Pakistan was trying to signal that it wants to use a tactical nuclear strike or something.
Yeah.
But there is also a school of thought which believes that Pakistan does not even have technological capabilities to fashion that kind of a warhead because miniaturization of warheads and having command and control for that is very, very difficult. Has
Okay.
Pakistan achieved it? We don't have very credible kind of sort of confirmation of that. So all in all, I would feel that this is a bluff. After Balakot, we managed to call it off also.
Yep.
We did carve out space for for conventional battle below the tactical nuclear threshold by
Right.
our selection of target and you know very nuanced kind of application. We did not only go to POK, we went to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Mm.
Now, Pakistan also talks in terms of a new concept of war fighting, which is basically that quickly they will try to take this war into hybrid domain. They will try and activate hybrid actions. Now, see, Pakistan all along in 47 they tried what was called Kabaili raiders.
Right.
You know, it had a religious dimension in that.
Yep.
Before 65 in 1963, the mysteriously hair of Prophet Muhammad, the holy relic, vanished, which is called Moe Mukaddas. It vanished.
Mm.
Later it was found. But 65 also, they sent task forces which were named after religious leaders. Saladin,
Yeah.
Shaheen,
That is the Gibraltar force, right?
Aladdin, Gibraltar force.
Right.
So they did that. And they thought this will, in Kashmir, people will rise and welcome them. Like what Russians thought, that when they'll enter Ukraine, people will be waiting for garlands. It didn't happen.
Yeah. Right.
It didn't happen at all. So 65 was this. In 71 was a little different thing. Though in Bangladesh they had used Razakars. They used those guys, okay, who were
Yeah.
charged with the religion to kill poor Bengalis.
Right.
And in Kargil, they again gave that cover of Mujahideens. They
Right.
said they're Mujahideens. So they forever would believe that it's so easy to start a. Uh, I'm not too sure. Hybrid element can be started after you have some part of your territory has fallen
Mm.
and you want to resist that by uprising, by cutting their communication lines. So what if India does shallow penetrations, consolidates, and do not go beyond its logistic reach? So how would you do that hybrid war? So
Right.
all in all, uh, I look at Pakistan as a country. For its existence, it needs India
Right.
because it is an anti-Indian formulation.
Right.
Okay. It also is tied down with parity syndrome, that you want to become equal to smaller brother, wants to be equal to India. It wants to punch much above its weight. It wants to become a leader of Islamic world. It's
Right.
harbored those, Islamic bomb and trying to become a leader of OIC bloc. It doesn't have the resources for that. Currently, it is in distress. Okay.
Right.
And it is also, I'm not too sure which Pakistan to address here. Like, army is following a different line. The public awam is not, doesn't even have a voice.
Right.
And like, if you see current scenario, uh, Nawaz Sharif and Shahbaz Sharif want to patch up. Imran has been, when they're talking now that 2021, there was some talk starting, and there was some thaw, and there was some plan that Modi ji will go to Pakistan, do that Hinglaj Mata Navratra there for nine
Hmm.
days, and then there will be all this will be done. But then Imran Khan stymied it. When Pakistan wanted to buy cotton and sugar, again Imran Khan stymied it. I'll just finish in one more minute.
Yeah.
Currently, when Nawaz and Shahbaz is saying that let's have thaw, Imran, one doesn't know which way he's going. And you have this PPP, which is alliance partner of Muslim League. Over there, you have this Bilawal Bhutto and
He's a
Hina
joke.
Rabani Khan.
Right.
Hina Rabani Khan. Those two guys are abusing India. So
Yeah.
you really don't know which Pakistan to address. You know, you,
Yeah. They don't have like a yeah, everyone's speaking in different languages, and you know how they say that most of the countries they have a military. Pakistan, it's a military that has a country.
country. Yeah,
Yeah, the country is for the military. It's the opposite how
yeah.
it functions in the rest of the world. Point on the piece that you were talking about was where Pakistan wants to punch way above its weight. Yes, financially and resource wise, it does not have any of those, any of the weight that it needs to have to punch above that. But I would say militarily, I think out of all the Islamic world, they are one of the stronger militaries. Wouldn't you agree with that? Like, if you compare it with Turkey, which is in itself is a
Uh,
pretty strong military.
yeah, I would agree to that. They have been providing security to Saudi palace. They've been training pilots in Jordan, and they've
Yeah.
been doing. Their pilots are quite. They've also been lucky that their defense industrial base got handholding by Chinese was good.
Yep.
So they're able to make GF-17s, and they're able to make fighters. They're able to make. They've also managed to sell it to Nigeria, Myanmar, and two three. Even symbolically, they've
Yeah.
done that. Pakistan traditionally has been good in making ammunition and small arms,
Right.
whatever variety, and they have some clientele for that. That is a fact of life. We may keep talking on Twitter, but what is the fact is the fact. And also, Pakistan has managed to make Al Khalid tank in collaboration with China. They've done
Right.
that. My take on that is, uh, I've written it on, and I've written in my articles also. I've read uh, opinion of an international expert who is neutral. She's a lady. She is neutral, and she feels that Pakistan has managed to bring up its industrial base, heavy industries, Takshila, aviation complex, Kamra,
Hmm.
and ordnance factories, you know, in a much better way, she feels, than
Okay.
India. Or also, there is a fact of life that if you have grown up in army cantonments and military stations, in those towns, good mechanics, mysteries.
Yeah.
were many times Muslims. You would have seen it in Mao also, that
Mm.
your motorcycle mechanic, your scooter mechanic, your painter, your tailors, because whatever it is, they had these skills. So has somehow, and I have no way to validate it, but somewhere theology also has been factored in
Okay.
because they managed to do that. See, so all in all, uh, it's a strong army. You can't say it's a weak army. Even Air Force is good. Only have some asymmetry over them in Navy.
Mm. Right.
Yeah, otherwise, uh, we are not in that situation today. Our desire was that we should have punitive deterrence against Pakistan. That every
Mm.
time Pakistan wants to do something to us, it's like having a spoiled brat in your house and you want to give it
Right.
one back, you know, and the child keeps shut. That
Yeah. It's like.
capability we have not been able to. Surgical strike was one
Yeah.
attempt, but then somewhere they also managed to shoot down Abhinandan's aircraft.
Right.
So somewhere this thing. So we still have miles to go. We have to sort of this thing. And now the challenge has got magnified because some forces have been rebalanced to Chinese border, and also
Yes.
and collusive threat is also there. Previously, we thought that whenever Pakistan attacks, China will not come in.
Right.
Now there is a real possibility that both can act in a collusive mode. But
Mm.
we are catered for all this. I'm not saying we have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, so it's that thought process that people think that, oh, Pakistan is a smaller military than us, so there's no like real threat from it. But in a two front war where China and Pakistan collude and then they attack us at the same time, that becomes a very challenging scenario for the Indian military. But as you said, we've catered for that situation, and we have forces on both the sides to sort of
Yeah,
block
yeah.
those entrances. Speaking of
And block
go ahead,
apart, achieve our objectives.
achieve
Whatever
objective.
objectives we have, but I can't tell you, and I have no way to tell you because I retired about 6 7 years back.
Right.
I do not know the current status, and I can't tell you that whether in how much time we can liberate POK or Gilgit Baltistan. Those are things which current lot knows.
Right. Okay. Where do you see the Indian armed forces in the next 10 or 20 years? I know there's a lot of reorg that's happening. We are investing in a lot of indigenization of our weapons, and reducing the dependence on, say, other countries like Russia, France, and everything. And just so, where do you see our armed forces in the next 10, 20 years?
See, we have challenges. Biggest challenge is this debate between butter and gun because
Right.
how much money to give to development, how much to give to defense.
Right.
We have those limitations. We are a developing economy, but we are on the correct path. We are doing rebalancing. We are reorganizing also. We have the genius to be able to do that, and that process is underway. Only thing, there are certain resistances which have to be overcome. So it is hoped that in next few months or next year or so, we'll achieve a desire to do theaterization. Indian system has got this elephantine, inertia. It gets, you know, it starts with a good aim, but then it gets stalled somewhere. And
Right.
there is a silo-based kind of turf-centric orientation, which has to be broken. But hopefully, we have the willpower. I think we should be able to. And this government has done something wonderful of making a CDS.
Right.
So they should take it forward.
Yeah.
Even Atmanirbharta is a wonderful concept, but we must, as an informed debate, we should know self-reliance is not exclusion,
Right.
and you cannot. It's not a switch, electric switch that you put it on and light aa gaya. No, it will not happen like this. It will take 1 or 2 decades for us to become self-reliant.
Right.
Because, see, let me give you an example of, say, a ship. A ship has got 3 components: float, uh, move, fight.
Hmm.
So, float component requires steel and laid out in a configuration with buoyancy so that it can float.
Right.
So, that steel or that material, about 80% is indigenous. But the value chain for that is it is 15-20% only. Okay, we have
Hmm.
achieved 80% indigenization in that. The second component is move, which is engines. Now we don't have the capability to make gas turbine engines. We get them from Ukraine. Now we are trying to get them from Russia. Some
Right.
that factories got destroyed. So luckily our engines were lying in Russia, so we are trying to get it. So they were in that process or something is there. So in this, there is a problem, and not only in Navy. We are not able to make engines for our jet and aircrafts. Now we are trying to somehow build that capability. Our helicopter get engines from France, some kind of a collaboration.
Yep.
And even tanks, we are not able to make engines of 1500 horsepower or so. We are still
Right.
getting them from Russia or Germany. So there is a need to make power plants that capability. It will come with hand holding or convincing somebody to make it in India and develop an ecosystem around it. Okay, that is like important thing. And the third thing is fight. Fight is a combination of optronics and weapons. Now,
Hmm.
in that, we are able to do quite a lot, but we still have to get systems and weapons from Israel and France. So, for us to say that, okay, 2025 India will be fully Atmanirbhar, no, it will not happen. It
Right.
will take time. And I call it smart Atmanirbharta. That means don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't make something which is so readily available in the world that you can pick it up off the shelf, or it's a technology which is already readily available. Firstly, reduce your critical dependencies, which is engines and your missile guidance system and
Yeah.
your air defense umbrella. Reduce those dependencies because they are strategic weaknesses. You can be, your tail can be twisted on that. Today,
Yeah.
like Turkey has got that capability, Bayraktar, it can twist tails.
Right.
Uh, Third thing is simultaneously or concurrently steal a march over others if you initiate so that you can trade off. If I give you this, you give me this. That kind of thing. So it's a huge, it's a very complex exercise, but we have to do it.
Right. I think I lost you a little bit in the last one or two sentences.